Me and my older brother Justin were on a camping trip along the northern Appalachian region. Justin handled all the planning like he always did, and I just went along with whatever he picked. He did a good job this time. The site was really beautiful, and because we had to hike a good distance to reach it, there weren't many others around. From what we could tell, no one else was nearby. The camping spot itself wasn't clearly marked though. It was tough to say if we were even in the exact place we were meant to be. There were several clearings between trees that all looked like they could have been the right one, but neither of us really cared. We settled into one of the grassy clearings. At first, we thought the area was barely used, but we started noticing we were wrong. There were scattered leftovers around, nothing big like whole tents or anything, but small stuff like a hiking stick or worn-out sneakers. It wasn't normal to see that kind of thing left behind out here, especially not this far from any easy access point. We both thought it was odd but didn't dwell on it. We spent the day hanging out and talking. As the sky darkened, we built a fire and sat around it. A couple hours into the evening, I noticed something behind Justin. I pointed it out, unsure what I was looking at. We both stared toward it, and after a few seconds we realized it was a small flame, like from a campfire. It was way off in the distance and partly hidden behind thick trees, but the faint orange flicker was visible if you focused. If it hadn't been so dark from the clouded moon and the dense woods, we probably wouldn't have seen it at all. I guess that meant we weren't out there alone. It was a little strange though. That direction just looked like endless trees, no sign of a decent opening to set up a fire. Maybe they just wanted more privacy or something. We didn't give it too much thought. We pulled out some snacks and drinks and stayed up talking until we were too tired to keep going. We put the fire out and went to sleep around midnight. I fell asleep without any problems. But I woke up not long after, maybe an hour or two later. I knew exactly why I woke up though. I'd drunk too much before going to bed and had to go. I unzipped the tent and stepped out. I walked maybe 40 or 50 feet from the site to avoid bringing animals too close. As I stood out there, I noticed that far-off flame was still burning. Maybe I was just too tired or dazed, but I stood there staring at it for a bit. I don't even know why. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, something else slowly appeared in my view. It looked like someone, a figure, standing between me and the fire in the distance. My heart skipped. I told myself it was probably a weird-shaped bush or something. There was no way someone was just standing out there, in the dark, this late at night. But I kept watching. My eyes were sharper now in the dark. I started to notice more figures, shapes that looked like people. They were so far out, and the woods were so shadowy, I couldn't tell if my brain was just messing with me. But if they really were people, there were at least a dozen, maybe more, all spread out between the trees. And it looked like they were all turned toward me. Another wave of fear hit me. What the hell was I seeing? For a moment, I thought I was dreaming or hallucinating. I spun around and rushed back into the tent. I hesitated before waking Justin up. If this turned out to be nothing, he'd never let me live it down. But something deep down told me it wasn't nothing. I unzipped his part of the tent and shook him. He was groggy and confused at first, but I quickly told him I thought I saw something and wanted a second look. He dragged himself up, and I led him out toward where I'd been. We didn't get far. The figures I'd seen had moved. They were closer now, scattered all around between the trees, just past the edge of the clearing. I still hoped I was seeing things. I turned and looked at Justin. I could see all the color drain from his face. His eyes were wide and filled with panic. He saw them too. I turned back and looked again. It was clearer now. These were people. You could see their slight movements, standing there quietly, all eyes locked on us. We stepped back toward our tent. Should we go? I'll never forget the shaky sound of Justin's voice when he asked that. He was always the confident one, always in control. Hearing him sound like that chilled me. I nodded. We didn't grab anything except for our wallets and the keys to the car. We didn't talk. We just turned and walked fast down the trail. We didn't run, we didn't want to trigger anything. We just kept moving. It didn't seem like anyone followed us. We made it to the car and drove away. When we had service again, we contacted local law enforcement. We figured it needed to be reported, but they didn't take us seriously. It was obvious they thought we were exaggerating. Like there was no way a whole group of people was just standing in the woods staring at us at night. We remembered the random items we saw earlier, the trekking pole, the shoes, and wondered if anyone else had reported anything strange from that area. But we were told there were no reports, nothing official. Either no one had come forward, or maybe no one else ever made it back. This happened quite some time ago. I'd say maybe around 2013. I live in a small rural town in Oregon, where it's mostly surrounded by dense woods and scattered with little campgrounds you can reach within an hour or so. I had a long weekend off, 4 days, and I hadn't gotten outside much lately, so I thought I'd head to one of those campgrounds for a quiet solo trip. The place I picked was pretty basic, more like a pull-off area with a dirt lot where you park, and 3 small clearings to choose from for tents. Each spot had its own fire ring, some old grills, and wooden benches that looked like they hadn't been used in years. But still, someone probably used them now and then. All 3 sites were free and no other vehicles were around, so I took the one all the way on the left and hauled my gear over. It only took about 5 minutes to get from my car to the site, but the trees were thick in every direction, so it really felt like I was deep in the forest. On top of that, the actual camping area was about 45 to 50 minutes from the nearest town. About an hour in, I realized I didn't know what to do with myself. Should I just sit around and chill? Read something? I figured maybe there'd be a trail or something interesting to walk around. So I headed back to the entrance to check things out. There wasn't a trail, but there was a new car parked next to mine. It was this beat-up old red Honda. Really rough shape, covered in rust spots and scratched all over. The weird part was it didn't have a license plate, not in the front or back. I didn't know what to make of that, but guessed whoever owned it must have picked one of the other 2 campsites. Since there were no paths or anything, I just went back to my spot and sat down on a log near the fire pit. I'd only been there 10 minutes when I heard someone walking up behind me. When I turned around, a man was coming down the path. No bag, no gear, just walking straight toward me like he wanted something. He looked like he might have been in his mid-30s, but something about him felt older. His jacket, brown and full of holes, was stained all over, and his hair and beard were long and greasy, almost like he hadn't cleaned up in a long time. He asked if I could help him with something real quick. I had nothing else going on, so I said sure and stood up, but then he quickly thanked me and said not right now. He still had stuff to take care of, but would come back later when he needed a hand. I told him okay, and he said thanks again and walked away. I didn't really get why he came by if he didn't need anything yet, but maybe he had to unpack or get settled first. I figured he'd show up again in 10 or 15 minutes. I waited, but time went by. Half an hour, then another. The sun started going down. I assumed he probably got whatever it was done on his own. 2 hours later, I had completely put it out of my mind. I had a fire going and was cooking some food when I heard those footsteps again. I turned around, but it was much darker now. I couldn't see anything at first, just the crunch of shoes moving slowly down the path toward me. Eventually, the firelight lit up his face, and it was the same man. I didn't understand why he was back, especially so late. He asked if I was still willing to help out, said he just needed a quick hand. I asked what it was for, but he just smiled like it was a joke, saying it'd only take a second and that I didn't seem busy. His smile felt off, like he was trying too hard to be casual, but there was a pushy tone behind it, and he dodged my question altogether. I get nervous in social situations and didn't know how to say no. I kind of just went along with it. There wasn't much else to do anyway, so I stood up and followed him. As we moved farther from the fire, it got really dark. That's when I realized how strange it was that he hadn't brought a flashlight, and it felt wrong following him into the trees like that. I asked again what he needed help with. He slowed down for a second like he was going to respond, but then kept walking without saying a word. I felt my pulse speed up. My instincts were suddenly screaming that something wasn't right. The stillness in the woods felt too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. I started walking a little slower, trying to put a bit of space between us without drawing attention. I managed to get maybe 3 or 4 steps back when he suddenly stopped and turned around. His grin dropped the moment he saw the distance I'd put between us. He didn't say anything, Then his hand dropped into his coat. I didn't wait to see what came next. I spun around and tore off into the woods, deeper than I'd gone before, running as fast as I could. I only caught a glimpse of something, what looked like the grip of a knife, but that was more than enough. I heard him charging behind me, his boots slamming the ground, his breath loud and ragged. He chased me for what felt like forever, probably only 2 minutes or so. Then the sound of him started fading, and eventually it was just me, crashing through underbrush alone in the dark. I was lucky I'd kept my phone and keys on me. I called for help immediately. When the police showed up, my SUV was still there, but the red car was gone. So was the man. I gave them every detail I could. The car, the guy's clothes, what he looked like. But nothing ever came of it. They couldn't find anyone. It's pretty obvious what he had in mind that night. And the way he planned it, coming by during the day to make me more likely to trust him later, was honestly the scariest part. That kind of thinking, that kind of patience, it really messes with your head. I think about it a lot, how easily it could have ended differently, and how someone else might not be as lucky. Maybe someone else already wasn't. This happened back in early spring, almost 2 years ago. I had taken a short break from my job to spend some time outdoors, camping near a small lake in central Wisconsin. I'd been there a couple times before, either with family or some buddies, but this time around, I went alone. It was about a 2-hour hike to reach the lake, but it wasn't hard. The trail was mostly level and easy to follow the whole way. When I arrived, I pitched my tent a short distance back from the water, further into the trees, so I wasn't camped right at the shoreline. I unfolded my chair, cracked open a cold drink, and sat back listening to the breeze on the lake and birds chirping through the woods. It was already late in the afternoon when I got there, so the sun was starting to drop not long after I got settled. I've always liked the feeling of being in the woods after dark. There's a kind of quiet out there that makes you feel like you've stepped out of your regular life. It's hard to explain. Something about it always felt peaceful, but that night felt different. After the sun dipped behind the trees, I got a fire going and sat close to it, just enjoying the heat. But a strange feeling crept over me that I usually never had while camping. It felt like someone had eyes on me, like I wasn't alone. I started glancing around at the trees and the thick shadows beyond them. The feeling made me restless, nervous in a way I wasn't used to. I'd never been the paranoid type, so I didn't know why this was happening. And still, no matter how much I scanned the darkness, I couldn't spot anything out of place. It was just so dark out there that even if something was lurking, I probably wouldn't have seen it unless it walked straight into the firelight. There wasn't a reason I could think of to be nervous, so I tried to push it aside. I focused my mind on other things, personal stuff I was dealing with in my own life. It wasn't exactly comforting, but it kept my thoughts off the sense of being watched. A few hours slipped by. It must have been around 10:30 or 11 o'clock by then when I suddenly heard a sharp, loud snap directly in front of me, like a thick branch had just been crushed under a heavy foot. It came from somewhere beyond the edge of my firelight. The forest was pitch black in that direction. The noise was so loud it echoed for a second. It gave me chills. Whatever made that sound had to be big. My first thought was either a large animal or a person. I wasn't sure which possibility scared me more. I reached down, grabbed my bear spray, and called out toward the woods. Just something like, "Anyone there?" But there was nothing. No movement, no sounds in return. Not even a single leaf rustled in response. I kept thinking that if it had been a bear or something, I would have at least heard it walking around, brushing through the branches or moving the underbrush. But it was dead quiet. I sat there for a few minutes, staring into the blackness, waiting for anything to move. Then I remembered I had a flashlight buried in my gear. I rummaged through my backpack until I found it, but by then a couple minutes had passed. I clicked it on and pointed it in the direction the sound had come from. Nothing, just the woods, still and silent. That's when the nervousness started creeping back, stronger than before. This time it wasn't just in my head. I threw a few more logs on the fire, trying to keep it blazing bright so I could see my surroundings better. Every now and then, I turned the flashlight back on and slowly swept it around the trees. One time when I did, I caught something right at the farthest edge of the beam. It was a man. Definitely a man. Tall. Really tall, not like something out of a movie, but way above average. He looked to be somewhere around 6'5", maybe a little more. As soon as the light hit him, he stepped backward, just far enough to be swallowed by the darkness again. My heart was pounding now. I couldn't believe it, but that strange gut feeling I'd had earlier was right. I replayed the noise I'd heard earlier in my head and realized it must have come from him. Someone that size would have easily snapped a branch like that just by stepping on it. He had to have been the one watching me all that time. He was massive too, probably weighed around 240 or 250 pounds. I don't know how long he'd been out there, but he must have been standing there in the woods, silently observing me from a distance, just waiting. Panicked, I tore down my tent without folding anything, stuffed what I could into my backpack, and slung it over my shoulder. I remembered the direction he moved when I shined the light, so I ran the opposite way, back the same direction I'd come, heading toward where my car was parked. I didn't stop running for a while. Eventually, when I felt like I had put enough space between me and wherever that man might have been, I flicked the flashlight back on, low setting this time, and slowed down to a walk. I kept glancing behind me, ears tuned to the slightest noise, half expecting to see him come out of the trees. The whole time I walked, my brain was spinning, trying to figure out why he was out there. I kept thinking, if he meant to rob me or hurt me, why didn't he just do it? Why wait and watch? Was he checking to see if I had a weapon? Was he hoping I'd fall asleep first? Maybe he didn't know I'd seen him. I finally made it back to the gravel lot where I'd left my car. I got in, locked the doors right away, and drove home. The whole drive, I didn't feel completely safe until I hit a stretch of road with streetlights. I still go camping now and then, but things changed after that night. The peace I used to feel being out in the woods just isn't there anymore. Now there's always this quiet suspicion in the back of my mind that someone might be watching me from the shadows. And maybe it's just a feeling, but maybe it's not.